Hello from my studio space. This is Cat Swan with Blank Canvas and Coffee. To retain continuity and add a sense of nuance, I was unable to keep the length of this art tutorial to 5 minutes. Please enjoy each 13-minute video segment. Don't worry, a coffee break is included. And for the viewers who are fans of nuance, enjoy. I'm going to complete part 2 of painting a bowl with an example of painting on white and natural board. So the colors we will be using: unbleached titanium white, cadmium yellow medium hue, Turner's yellow, cadmium orange medium hue, light blue violet, cerulean blue. And I'm also using titanium white. In a previous video, I went back and redid the color scheme in these colors, so I'm probably going to stay within these colors. So here we go. So I'm going to start with this area right here on the bowl. I'm just going to play around a little bit with what I discovered over here. And I've lost the detail over in the shadow here, but we'll pick up a hint of it. I'm going to give it a little more reflective light on the bottom there. And then we'll carry this toward this lighter side of the bowl. And this area is going to be darker in shadow than the inside of the bowl because we've got a lot of reflective light coming across from the inside of the bowl here. It is indented there. So paint on it yet is darker than this area from what I'm seeing here. The purpose is make this darker than over so here, that the eye will see it turning the form. For rinsing the brush out between using warm and cool colors, and it helps me keep the colors a little more vibrant. And I like to use yellow as a base and then I build on that. I think that's close to this color here. So add a little more. That's a little more orange, but we will lighten that up. A little darker. And sometimes even if there's mostly an area in shadow, I'll pop in some warm colors just to give it a little something there. And that's where I'm going to brighten it up a bit. Love the Turner's yellow. And over here, I'm going to experiment with unbleached titanium white and then add titanium white. And I think that's a good color. That's going to go pretty well with that. And if your hand's a little shaky, once you get that brush on your canvas, it'll steady your hand and you can just go ahead. There we go. I'm painting around a little bit to keep that detail. Trying to keep in with the highlights here to carry it down through the bowl. There's a little bit of a highlight there. Now using this smaller brush, which is a filbert, load up the brush and get some finer lines on the edges here. Go with the Turner's yellow and the cadmium yellow and some titanium white. And I'm going to pull some of that out, some of the cooler color to come over a little more. So leave some water on your brush and drag it along and pick up. So if you've gone a little too far, you can always try to go back in. There you go. So it gives a little more interest here with the warm to cool. This is the cast shadow. Okay, and every time you step away to rinse your water, you get a little fresher look at the painting. This is very dark for white to me, so I'm going to come in and lighten it up just a little bit. We're not going to have it as light as the inside of the bowl. I'm just going to try to keep it here, but just pop in a little, maybe a little warmth. Let's try going with some cool colors and then we'll pop in the warm. So there's a little warmth in here. You just squint my eyes a little bit and see, I think right about there. And that's reflective light from the surface. Since I'm leaving this area mostly white, I'm kind of playing off that, not using the wood as the definite color. Try not to overdo it. When I like a color, I tend to just start using it in the whole painting, and then I lose a lot of the definition of the shade. So I'm really trying not to do that here and just pop it in here and there. So I'm going to try to make this area a little more transitional, a little more of a lighter look in here. I'm going to chance it and pop that in there. And that's borderline. I'm not sure if it's going to work. We'll see. Just lost an area that I really liked. Now I'm going to come in with the lighter areas. I think what I'll do is pop in lighter areas here and here and leave it, and then come back in and do the white tinted colors to really pop the white ceramic on the bowl. And all that. Let's have some fun with these paint strokes. That went a little too soon for me. Let's do that. And a little bit in here. Ever so slightly. Adding more depth in there. going to leave that. That's a nice transition. And I'll come up here and do a little bit there. And then a little in the middle. And see how we can build that in. A little here, a little there. Turner's yellow. A little cadmium yellow, medium hue, and titanium white. A little more of this one. A little help there. Sometimes you need your palette knife. There. And that's kind of nice. It pulls the bowl out a little bit, giving a little more dimension. This area needs a little more work to have it rounder. So this gives an idea of the direction that I want to go in. Gives me a better idea of what the colors are doing. So we will pick this up earlier in the afternoon when there's more light. Much better. There's more light available. It's earlier in the afternoon the following day. And I'm adding cadmium yellow medium hue and Turner's yellow to get to the point of adding a deeper color to the front of the bowl to transition from the shadow to light. And I do use similar colors on the interior of the bowl, but with the direction of the paint strokes and the different tints of each color, even though they are similar on the exterior as they are on the interior, it still gives the bowl the illusion of turning the form. This smaller brush allows me to create finer lines. You can create these same weight of lines with the larger flat brush, but with this smaller flat brush, it can give you the sense of having a little more control over the paint strokes. Going back into the interior, adding some of that lighter orange. And these shadow shapes have cool and warm colors to them. So bumping up the warmer colors on this area of the bowl, on the interior, are giving it a little more depth. And I may come back in later and knock in some cooler values as well, some tints of the blue and light blue violet. Adding a little more nuance here with the lighter yellow. And in the shadow area of the exterior of the bowl, this is a good color. It's Turner's yellow and light blue violet, and that gives it a little more reflective quality of what the light is doing when it's bouncing off the surface and reflecting into the exterior of the bowl. And we'll just add that to the interior a little bit to give it some continuity. I still check my colors to make sure, because sometimes when you're mixing them on the palette, they look a little lighter or darker than they maybe should. So it's nice to be able to check my work before I go ahead and put that paint stroke down in the painting. And we'll play a little more with the reflective light qualities. Here, adding a little more light blue violet with the tint of that color. And coming back in, sharpening that up a bit. And this area looks pretty good. Getting a hint of some of the detail back into that shadow area. And come back in for that transition section on the exterior of the bowl. It's a lot of going back and forth between the warm and the cool, and I kind of take a look at it in those areas to see if that transition is working, experimenting to see if maybe a warmer or a cooler tone may work better. Or I might see something in the light that I hadn't seen previously that would just give it that little added something to the piece. And this is a study, so it's great to be able to experiment. And then if I do decide to move on to a finished piece with the same subject, I have a better idea of the direction I may want to go in for the finished piece. This is the filbert brush coming back in for those finer lines, a little more details. That can give it a really nice little brush stroke quality too, that the larger flat brush might not be able to do. Come back in on that. Now with the smaller flat brush again, adding a little more tinted yellow, coming back into that section to give it a little more definition. And I tend to build up and up and up to as wide as I can get when I'm working on a ceramic object like this that has more white in it than other objects might. That's just part of my process. I like to build on the colors because those darker colors can also come through. You'll see a hint of it coming through the lighter colors that are on top of them, and just kind of build a little more dimension, give it a little more depth. Going back in with the cool color and some Turner's yellow. See what that does. A little titanium white. And the unbleached titanium white is starting to grow on me a little more. I don't use it that often, but it is nice to pop it in here and there, and it does give a little warmer quality than the titanium white does on its own. A little more there. And a touch here. That'll help carry the eye around the piece. And you can see there's a lot of different reflective light going on, so it's a really interesting pattern that you can pull out in the piece. Let's see what that does. A little warmer tone in there. We'll build up the yellow color again. A lot of the other paint that I already had laid out and mixed out on the palette is dried. So you'll see that I go around the palette creating the same colors again, just to make sure that I have fresh colors to work with to give those paint strokes some texture. That's kind of nice. We're going to pull that out there. See if that'll lighten it up a bit. That works. Build the color back up. I like that. That pulls out that section of the bowl a little more too. Makes it pop forward. And as you can see, I'm just building with the lighter tints, continuing to pop in highlights, try not to lose areas, keeping some sections in the 3 to 5 range value scale, and using the 1 to 2 value scale where it's the lightest on the object. And as I'm experimenting, there's some sections that I'm losing the look that I liked when I first put the paint strokes down. But it is a lot of back and forth and seeing if you really are liking a section as much as you did before. So it's always changing when you're not tied to a color ref or a composition that you've laid out prior to painting. I'm not sure if I like that so much. We'll see how that works. That brings it back a little bit, but it's not as bright as I had it previously. That fixes it a little better. Go back into the interior. Redefine some of the highlight areas, get some of that reflective light going. And I'll tone that down in a moment. There we go. With ceramic, you have a lot of reflections in the objects. It's not as much as in the glass objects. And let's try the cerulean blue and the light blue violet again. Match that up on the board. And we'll see how that works in the shadow, in this cast shadow area. That brings it back a little bit, but it still has that reflective light quality to it. And as I'm working in the painting, some of the fresh paint is pulling on areas of the paint that's been laid in. It's not quite dry yet, so you can still work into it, but it does start to drag a little bit, so you need to keep that in mind, that you want to work quickly enough so that you're blending the strokes and not fighting the medium. And that's a nice warmth area in the darker section of the exterior bowl. It's a nice play of color there. A little more detail, a little more highlight. Bring up a little more white in that area. And so you can see the dark and light and how they play together. So this is how the bowl looks on just with white. This is how it looks with just on the natural board. And I'm liking the areas with where the whitewash background is a little more than the areas that are against the natural board. At some point I might try to do a piece that's all of the whitewash background just to see how that would compare to what I'm enjoying in the part of the painting that's on the white background. So with this extended video, you can see how much you go back and forth while you're working on a painting. So the actual paint time, the actual time I stayed in the studio painting this bowl was closer to 1 to 2 hours. And during that time, it's not constantly painting. It's stepping back and looking at the piece and viewing it and seeing where I might want to make some changes. So in between these paint strokes, there are multiple pauses of me considering, okay, what's the next step going to be? And but once you really get into a painting and you start to get into a groove, those pauses don't come as often, and you're moving a little more quickly along with your painting. But to be able for the viewer to get an idea of what it's like to go through the whole painting process, this longer video kind of gives you an idea. But the entire process for both video segments was closer to about 1 to 2 hours. And I'm playing around with this part of the cast shadow just to see if it would look better to have a transition from light to dark on more of a shaded value scale rather than just the stark cast shadow. And that's kind of nice. You're losing part of the bowl, but your eye finishes the bottom portion of it. And that comparison with that orange coming over a little closer to the interior of the bowl that's on the natural board background, that's kind of nice. Thank you so much for watching my blank canvas and coffee video, and I hope to see you next time when we view another blank canvas together and maybe have some time to enjoy some coffee. If you enjoyed today's art session, please don't forget to like and subscribe at the bottom of this video, and please click on the bell to receive a notification for my next art session. See you next time.